welcome to the front+yard. Welcome to Chit Chat. It has been a while since Daly and I have gathered together and kind of talked through what our thoughts were on our blogs. And we just thought, leading into Thanksgiving, this is a great time for us to, just for the two of us to have dialogue about what's been on our hearts. So Daly, why don't you kind of explain your, the blog this week, which really talked about finding good perspective in mundane things.
I think all of us have kind of been in a season, especially after lockdowns and COVID and things changing, where we feel like we're doing the same things all the time, but with little tweaks and differences, and everything seems to be kind of crazy in different ways,
right?
But boring at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's this like, I could feel that that drudge, like I was having to just keep going onward, and really asking myself the question, how can this possibly be all that you're asking me to do right now? There's got to be something bigger, better out there, or there's got to be something that's different or new. And I think what happened was I was putting the result, that whole what it is that I wanted to accomplish, ahead of what the task that God was asking me to do. And so just really finding some balance between how do I keep moving forward and trusting God's with all the rest.
Well, and I'm incredibly results driven by personality. I think Enneagram 3, I think achievement, I want to see the result. And I know in my head and my heart that God cares so much more about that process than he does about where I ever end up. And that's hard for me because it's unsettling, and it never stops being a season of tension in that, knowing that his desire is for me to trust him in the process of where he's taking me more than achieving where I'm going.
Right. And I think we're a results driven people. I think that's part of the game, is that that's kind of how we're built. And I think our society tells us that what will be your return on your effort here?
Right.
What you put in. And there is some reciprocity. That is a biblical principle. It is a part of life. And at the same time, there are times when God isn't measuring what we think is important. He really thinks the other stuff is important, the stuff that we don't value in a lot of ways. And I think that's so hard. I think we need the reminders constantly that he sees things differently.
I love this quote that you shared on your social media page, and it's a Martin Luther King Jr. quote. It says, "If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or as Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause and say, 'Here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well.'" And it's man, if you can put what you're doing into that context, here lived a mother who parented her children well. Here lived a mother who cooked dinners well. Here lived an accountant who did accounting well. That should be the goal of any of us with the task, as is narrowed down in mundane of laundry, of driving kids to activities, of any of those things. And that just resonated so highly with me, because I always have this hierarchy of importance, whether it's writing or doing laundry or meeting with an exchange student or coaching somebody through something or having dinner with somebody. I have this hierarchy of importance of earthly perspective. And God's you're right. Those things that are quiet and in solitude, or that nobody knows, or are just not enjoyable, that I don't have on my list of worth, are the things that he says, hey, do that as well as you do the things that everybody sees.
Right. And a part of this was what got me thinking about this was not only just a situation of life in general nowadays, that a lot of it is filled with mundane, is Jason and I were having a discussion, my husband and I were having a discussion about how, when the Pharisee stood in the temple and was praying, Jesus he's talking to his disciples about prayer, and And he says, don't be like the Pharisee who stands in the temple and says, thank you, God, that I am not like this tax collector here. And I told Jason, I said, I don't think, like, I think some of the context and the culture is lost. Back then, they said rote prayers on certain days. They said it at certain times and in certain meetings. So I don't think that Jesus, when he was telling that story, what the disciples understood and what Jesus was saying was God was listening to his heart. That was not what was coming out of the Pharisees' mouth. Out of the Pharisees' mouth was exactly the same thing that was coming out of the mouth of the tax collector. Like, they were saying the same rote thing, but he was listening to the stuff that nobody could hear. Like, he was listening to what his heart was talking about. And the same thing with the tax collector. The tax collector who came in and was saying the same rote prayer as the Pharisee, but his heart was humble and contrite before God. And so it really kind of put this like bow on the whole thing about how God hears what our heart says in the everyday things. I mean, that's what they were doing. They were just doing the prayer that they did during the day, that was already told for them. Just like we're doing the laundry, we're making the meals, we're getting people to school, we're making the phone calls, whatever it is. But God hears how our hearts are talking about those things and whether our view of ourselves and of him in that is accurate. And so it really is about God changing who we are and how our heart sees and experiences our inflated self versus his and who he is. And it's that I think is, I mean, that applies to everything, I feel like. And I feel like we're so drawn to seeing those outside things and worshiping those outside things really and truly as being so important that we forget that it's the little bitty mundane things that maybe nobody else notices or sees, that done in just obedience and simplicity and just being willing to just do it, just do the next right thing, that we've almost kind of had this culture now of not being able to even appreciate or recognize those things when we see it. Like when you were talking about in your blog about, we don't often step out there and say, hey, by the way, thanks for doing that, whatever it was, even the little things. And I think, it could be a blog, it could be giving, it can be picking up a kid and taking them to school with your child. It could be all these things that people see, but it could also just be, hey, thanks for texting me the other day and just asking about me. And we so forget to, number one, to notice it. We've lost the vision to be able to see those things that keep us going, that people are doing in their lives each and every day. And we don't notice it. And I think your encouragement to step out is one of those things that we do have to start practicing very intentionally, at least for me.
Well,
I
don't
always go out.
Even in our homes. And that's where it's easy as the mother to feel like you're doing more than anybody else and nobody's thanking you, right? Like that's in every home across the world. This is what's happening. But I think by modeling, thank you for working today, for providing for our family, and that feels mundane to our significant others, that it does. Thank you for paying the bill so the lights are on. I mean, those are things that I don't think to say thank you for. Or to our kids, hey, thanks for going to school and trying your hardest at school. And so it's, I think too, as we go into this Thanksgiving season, I was riding in a car the other day with my oldest, and one of the questions, we were going through a list of questions, and one of them was, what are you thankful for? I think every kid in the world who has things says home, family, friends, moving on, food. Like there's just and those are great things to be thankful for. But I said, how specific can you be with your gratitude? How can you say, I am thankful for the steam that rises off the coffee in the morning, reminding me how much warmth it brings to me when the room feels cold. Like to really get in the nitty gritty of, I'm really thankful for the picture that hangs on the wall that reminds me of the places that I've been and been able to travel to, because that brought me joy. And so I think practicing being grateful for the mundane also comes from really being specific about the intensity that we're thankful for, the details around us that have become so mundane.
Right. And I do think that's a practice, something that we teach, that we model, like you said, which means it starts with our own self-discipline.
Right.
It starts with our own ability to point out the things that maybe nobody else sees. And I think fall is a really great season to do that in.
Right.
Number one, we get a lot of change all of a sudden. And so there's a lot of natural beauty that we can draw attention to, which causes a thankful wonder. I think it naturally, I think that's part of how God designed it. But also there's seasons like the Thanksgiving season we're about to go into, and harvest, and has always been a part of thankfulness and gratefulness in the whole picture. But I think actively doing that out loud, it's hard for me as an introvert who prefers to not talk. I like the least amount of words as possible. But to actively, like you said, like pick out the thing, make an intentional decision to say something to somebody else, make it genuine, because in the genuineness of it, it does change us when we are genuine. And then we are able to show and create a culture within our home that does help with that encouraging, because then we do grow. We are encouraged. We're encouraged in being genuine. We gain the perspective to become thankful, to notice things that go unseen. But then it also encourages, like you said, the other person to continue doing that which is good, to spur one another on. And being thankful and encouraging in that way, saying something, is one of the ways that we spur one another on towards all these good works that God has for us. So I do think that
it also takes slowing down. And that's the part that, I mean, you don't even notice the mundane. I mean, for so much of my existence, I've been in a hurry. Literally, my life has been a hurry. And I miss opportunities. I miss, conversations. I miss beauty. But I really miss the mundane of, I'm just checking this off. I don't have time to process what I'm thankful for. I don't have time to process what you're doing for me. I don't have time to process what I'm doing for you. I just need to keep moving. And so, yeah, I think being fully present and willing to take 5 extra seconds to observe, to even formulate a thought about what is happening in front of you, to express gratitude about, is a huge part of it.
Wow. Well, that's a really great insight, because gratitude is, first of all, it is both what we do. We show gratitude. It's something that we do, like in a showing sense, but it is, first of all, how our hearts feel about how we are experiencing life. I mean, it does, it is. And when you're busy, you can't feel or process that feeling. So you're right. There's a lot about our culture that is anti-grateful and doesn't create a place where that's a natural thing. So we do have to be so intentional. And when we get that, like you said, like when we get that little nudge where we kind of think of something that touched us or ministered to us, or that we just think is unique and special about somebody else, just step out, like just do it. Just slow down, send the text, make the phone call, stop them in the hallway, wave at them in carpool line, whatever it is, do it.
Yes. And we really encourage you this Thanksgiving season to slow down enough to be thankful for more than food, health, family, all the things that like we love to rattle off, but to really sit in the tension of what things really trigger my heart to feel something that make me grateful. Because those lists become really unique and special to us and how God wired us. So we hope you have an incredible Thanksgiving season and find time to slow down and encourage somebody else along the way. Bye. Hey guys, we have a little thing that we want you to participate with us in as we're leading into Thanksgiving. We really want to practice what we've been talking about finding intentional gratitude in the things that seem mundane around us and stepping out and really expressing gratitude to the people in our lives. So this week, we want you to join us at the front.yard. We'll have very specific things that we want you to comment on or be aware of, and just post a picture, whatever you need to do to be present with us in showing gratitude. Am I missing anything, Daly?
No, I think that's it. I think it's exciting, and I think this will be fun. So y'all pay attention, and we'll make sure we get the notices out there and everything. And I really hope that y'all will join us.
Yeah, join us and be extra thankful this Thanksgiving season. All right, see you soon.